All I did all day, I was sending cold DMs on LinkedIn and emails. Look, if you don't like what I do, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. I'll give you your money back. I started doing this during COVID, during lockdown. I had quit my Microsoft job about 7 or 8 months before, and I was living on savings. So it was May, June, July, August, September, October is when I landed my first client.
Why didn't you give up in September? I mean, you had no client and you're wasting your time. You're spending every day and you don't have a single client. Why didn't you give up in September?
That's not an option for me, giving up. When I want something, and I know it can be done, if somebody else has done it, I can do it. So during the time that I was outreaching, I offered to work for free for some of the agencies in the ManyChat community. I had nothing better to do. I knew how to use ManyChat on an intermediate level. I wasn't advanced at it. So I went in and I started working for them for free. And in about 2 months, I was running the show. And I was at $50K a month for, like I said, probably too long. But bought that book, changed my offer, also started running Facebook ads. I hadn't done Facebook or paid traffic at all at the same time. And then 6 months later, boom, $400K a month.
How did you first start using this? Did you already have a client or did you started putting this in your own business? What was the first ways that you've implemented this?
In 2020, it was just me building chatbots. And I had the idea of, I'm going to start an agency and I'm going to build chatbots. And I just started reaching out to CEOs on LinkedIn. All I did all day, I was sending cold DMs on LinkedIn and emails. And I think I did that for about 4 to 6 months until somebody said yes to what I was saying. And I told them, look, if you don't like what I do, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. I'll give you your money back. And that was my first client.
Okay, can I just emphasize this? Because when I worked with clients on a consumer level, because I used to have my own membership and had these accelerator programs, and this is one of the things I would suggest them to do. There's many ways to get your first clients, but one of them is you go to LinkedIn, be very, very specific, have something of value to offer. And it's a game of numbers. And I would suggest okay, have at least 10 connections. I would even tell them add a note so there's context. And most people gave up pretty quick. Actually, no, I'll tell you what, most people didn't take a single step. The next largest group would give up really quick. A couple really started passing that first 3 to 6 month slog period and then started building momentum. How did you decide on that as a platform? And take me to the feeling that you were going through, maybe on month 1 of doing this and having 0 person become your client at that time.
It was an intense feeling because I started doing this during COVID. I had quit my Microsoft job 7 or 8 months before, and I was living on savings. And as a side note, the Microsoft job I got by sending 600 LinkedIn messages to Microsoft partners across Australia and telling them, I will work for free, give me a chance. That's another story. But I started during COVID, so it would have been April, May, and that's what I did all day. And my savings were close to 0 at that time. I was locked in. I had nothing better to do. I was doing this all day, every day. So it was May, June, July, August, September, October is when I landed my first client. And then from there, that client knew somebody else I was reaching out to. And this guy saw that I was working with the other guy and messaged him like, oh, she's amazing. And then from there, it just snowballed.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of twist the knife here, but this is really important for people listening. And I was going to ask, on month like September, why didn't you give up in September? I mean, you had no client and you're wasting your time. You're spending every day and you don't have a single client. Why didn't you give up in September?
That's not an option for me, giving up. When I want something, and I know it can be done, if somebody else has done it, I can do it. It's just a matter of time. So I wasn't going to give up. It was just a matter of time when the first client landed.
You need to have that sort of resilience. You need to have this kind of attitude. And at the same time, it could have been a different scenario. It could have been you're reaching out to all of these people, but maybe your offer isn't so clear. Maybe the value that they would get is not so defined. So what do you think are some of the elements you had in place, aside from your sheer determination, that made you still be confident saying this is going to work and it's just a question of time, as opposed to maybe I'm doing the wrong thing?
So during the time that I was outreaching, I offered to work for free for some of the agencies in the ManyChat community. I had nothing better to do. I knew how to use ManyChat on an intermediate level. I wasn't advanced at it. So I went in and I started working for them for free. And in about 2 months, I was running the show. So I was coming up with ideas. I had all of the strategies. So after 2 months, I knew that if somebody gave me a chance, I knew exactly what I was going to do to launch it. And it was funny because it was the perfect moment. Black Friday was just around the corner. This brand, Obvi, I don't know if you've heard of Obvi, if you know Obvi.
Oh, wait, Bobby, you're talking about makeup?
Obvi, O-B-V-I.
Oh, no.
Obvi, they sell collagen supplements.
Okay.
It's a very pink and bright brand. These guys are amazing. They took it from 0 to 30 million in a few years. So they were my first clients. And my first client was my client for 18 months after that. I built everything that I could think of for them. They told me, Liz, if whatever you're doing makes us money, brings us leads, or gives our clients better experiences, go and do it.
Nice. So I wanted to highlight that part because, again, for so many people that are just at the early stages, and I know for a lot of listeners, you might be just getting started in business and maybe you're figuring out your product market fit. I love the fact that I could extract this from you, Liz, is that, for one is you had the mindset that you were like, I've seen people have success there, so there's no reasons I can't have success. That was one thing I pulled. Second is during the time that you were outreaching, you were still finding ways to provide value to others where it would actually help your education and even build your confidence and your competence in the fact that you could use ManyChat and you could use these chatbots to bring results for the customer. So the moment the customer was ready to say yes, you were ready to deliver as well. And I think that's kind of the difference between going up till September and giving up and then staying till October. And now you got your first client and you were ready. There's a quote, and I don't know who uses this, but I hear it in seminar where people say like, if you're going out there and you're reaching out to people, what's the worst that could happen? And everybody says like, well, they'll say no. And then the flip is like, actually, they might say yes and you're not prepared. And so I find that need for preparation is so critical, and as far as a mindset, because there's almost a way that people prospect and do sales and they're like, I hope they don't pick up the phone because then I might have proof that I'm not ready for this. And so I love that story. I like the way that you showed up. Now you've kind of hit a plateau as well in your business, and I kind of want to fast forward maybe not so distant future, because here you are, you landed your first client. Now you started having more referrals are coming in, the clients are keeping you because you're bringing in results, but you found yourself at a kind of a revenue ceiling at some point. And I'd be curious to know what was going on there that made you feel so blocked, and unpack that story for us.
I think one of the things that slowed us down as an agency, so initially it was just me. I was building the chatbots, I was doing everything. Then I hired who is now my head of technology, and he was doing the chatbots and I was just reaching out to clients and handling strategy. And at some point we realized like we keep building these chatbots, but we don't have reporting behind it. We can't tell our clients exactly what's happening in the backend. And so we started testing out all sorts of ideas. And it took us about 2 years to perfect what is now our mini SaaS, our tracking system in the backend that allows us to understand exactly how people buy. It's very interesting for our clients as well because they couldn't even imagine what makes them ultimately buy. And so we started working on that, and I think we plateaued at about maybe 50K a month. Then I hired another bot builder, and in 2020, during Black Friday, it was just the three of us. That Black Friday almost broke us. All three of us were doing 16-hour days, Monday to Sunday, around the clock. We had previous clients were coming back to us to do Black Friday with us, and new clients just reaching out and like, that's it. It's time to scale. And that's why we couldn't handle more. Then that was it. So in January, exactly 1 year ago, I started hiring, and we're 10 now, and it looks like we're going to grow fairly fast. But at the same time, I broke that plateau after reading. I'd known Alex Hormozi for a long time. It was just like, I kept seeing him online and I resonated with a lot of the principles that he puts out. But I bought his $100 million offers in February, literally 1 year ago, or March. And I was at 50K a month for, like I said, probably too long. But bought that book, changed my offer, also started running Facebook ads. I hadn't done Facebook or paid traffic at all at the same time. And then 6 months later, boom, 400K a month. And then from there, it's just got into other masterminds that I'm in right now and looking to take it to $1 million a month.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. For one, I just want to highlight for everybody who isn't familiar with Alex Hormozi, we'll put a link into the show notes. We've had him on the Selling with Love podcast before. You'll want to check out the episode that we had with Alex where he talks a lot about the concepts from his $100 million offer book. It's a fantastic thing for people trying to figure it out and trying to break the ceiling on how to get people to just really line up to buy your product in a significant way. And I'm so happy that you had this break. I'd be curious to know about your own role, how it transformed and how it changed, because you went from just being a very small team, you're deploying deploying chatbots or you're just doing the sales calls. Now you have a bigger team. Your role's probably evolving. You're probably doing different things than you did at the beginning. And so was there anything surprising or radically different that you found yourself doing in your business now that you've scaled it to this level?
I am finding something surprising as of this month. As of January 1st, we've actually changed the way that we run meetings internally. I feel like for too long, I was just trying to be across everything. 3 meetings every day with sales, with my sales team, marketing team, with my fulfillment team. And I had a chat with Ty Lopez and told me, you're doing too much. At this level already, if your team can run without you, then you have a problem. You need a new team. So I switched things up. I spoke to the team and I told them I was actually traveling most of January. I traveled through the States and I told them we are going to start having 3 meetings per week. And that's a Monday, on a Wednesday, and on a Friday. In between, everybody lives in Slack anyway. And surprisingly, all of my account managers are killing it with their clients. Like I have such amazing people on my team. They're so autonomous, self-sufficient. If they need me, they tag me and everything works. Everything works really well at this point. We've implemented a fair bit of systems and we've also simplified some systems. I feel like with some things, we overcomplicated it. We simplified things, but we kept everything as automated as possible and as simple in terms of SOPs, systems, alerts, all of that. So everything just works. Like I literally just live in Slack. I see in Slack everything that I need to know. My account managers, whenever they change the status of what they're working on, I get a Slack alert inside of a special channel. When clients book calls with them, I see the call booked there. All of our ads lead to a Slack channel where I see all the booked calls. I have a team vetting, polling, qualifying, all of that. Everybody submits end of day reports. So it has been a long journey, but I've learned a lot from a lot of people. Hormozi, Ty Lopez, Cole Gordon, I don't know if you're familiar with him. And I've just actioned. Even the free content that Alex and particularly Layla has put out, a lot of content that I've actioned like that with shout outs and employee recognition. I think all of that put together has brought us to where I only have 3 meetings a week with my team and it runs.
It's so funny because it sounds like you're managing the business quite well. And so I want to tip my hat to you for that because that's not a competency that most people have naturally. But I'd just be curious to know, how do you feel that the work and experience you have in like designing marketing systems with chatbots translated into your competencies around managing employees and scaling the business?
I think one of my biggest, not limiting beliefs, but there are 2 things I'm always very self-aware. One is my accent. And for some reason, I've always felt the accent almost holds me back because, I don't know, when people hear an accent, you're like, 2, because I come from a cold culture, I've always been very mindful with my team at least, very mindful of how I treat them, of how open I am to their problems, if they have something in their family. If, for example, every single one of my team members submits an end of day Slack report where they mention what they've worked on, what they're struggling with, how they're going, not just work-wise, but also physically, mentally, how they're handling. And I reply in that thread to everyone every single day, and I connect them. That's our connection, where we go back and forth, and I listen, I hear them. And so I feel like me being so aware that I come from a cold culture where it's almost, is it black? It's either black or white. And people are very blunt, and it's made me be probably better than I would have been otherwise in terms of team management.
Yeah, well, I love that you still have a very strong process orientation, even as you're dealing with humans. And I'm also an advocate of moving everything towards Slack. And I had my own share of disasters and frustrations when being an international company, we'd have WhatsApp as one of the communication, which is the absolute worst. You can't do business on WhatsApp and you can't save anything. The voice notes don't have transcripts. So I'm definitely a big believer in bringing all the communication into a structured space. Slack being one of the great ones I also use and I'm very happy with. So it sounds like you have the right processes to scale. It sounds like you're even surrounding yourself with the right people and the right tools to guide you and give you that insight. And you're very action oriented. You spoke briefly about masterminds. I think you're getting yourself involved in some accelerator as well. So I'd be curious to know, how much do you actually invest or spend time looking externally for the trends in the market or for new thought leadership? And how does that impacted your business?
A lot. Sometimes I think too much because I took a quiz. Ty Lopez gave me this quiz, a personality quiz that assesses a few different things. One of them being, how high of a risk taker are you? And so I scored quite high and I just take risks. Worst case scenario, what's going to happen? I lose the money, I learn a lesson. If you have the money, and for me at this point, I will always pay to save time and to learn as fast as possible from people who've been where I want to go. So I spend a lot, not just on masterminds, but definitely over 6 figures per year on masterminds and just paying for people's time. Probably in the last 4 years, I've paid so many people by the hour just to get on Zoom calls with me and answer my questions. And so I feel like that is the one thing that I will just continue investing in, because I know that the person I am today is because, and not everything has paid off. Like there have been things or courses that I've taken that were not worth the money. That is also experience. It is all adding up to what I know. And I would recommend, if anybody has, I don't know, 1K, 5K available, do not start a business with 1K. Go and buy a course. Get some more education around that.
As for myself, I know that this is something that might be maybe controversial. I don't know if that's even the case, but I find that there's maybe a bit too much of you need to be an entrepreneur or you're a failure in the circles that I'm in. And I find that a lot of the education actually comes from the work and the jobs that you can take on where you're earning income and learning while getting paid, as opposed to having to pay to learn, which I do think paying to learn actually brings you results faster. But if you don't have a nest egg, you don't have the security, then you don't have the appetite for any kind of risk, which is mandatory if you're going into business. And I think that keeps a lot of people very stuck, because if you're holding on to the dollar, you can't create an ecosystem where money flows, because you're stopping the flow even with the way that you have such little access to resources. So I'm a big advocate of recommending people like find a job that will actually design your skills to be better. I love the initiatives you've taken to work within agencies to develop that skill, and then having enough of a cushion to being like, okay, now that I have that, I can invest and it pays dividends and it flows. And that to me is just the kind of next steps that people have to take. And you know, Liz, I really, really appreciate the conversation we're having, because although I brought you in because I know of the skills and the amazingness you've created into chatbots, and I want everybody who's maybe curious into that, I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you can learn more about what Liz's work in chatbots can do. If it's something that you're curious for, definitely look it up and see if it can apply for you as well. But I also appreciate your journey as an entrepreneur and the lessons that come from a sales perspective, a management perspective, and a marketing perspective that allows people to see what can the journey look like, where I see a lot of effort up front to just do the work, to just make the calls, get the connections, be persistent, have that attitude, and have this kind of value to offer to people that you've seen work, and have that confidence that if it worked for others, it can work for me as well, and pursuing that aggressively. I see a lot of people maybe giving up too early, and I find that unfortunate, because if you're sitting on something of high value, you just need to be in front of enough people. And if you're going to convert at 1%, you need to be having hundreds of conversations for a result to happen. So I really, really love that. I love the journey you're on. I'm excited for what's coming up. I know you're going into an accelerator, which is going to maybe take that $500,000 to get beyond to the $1 million a month. And so I know you're just at the beginning, but there's something I do want to ask every guest that comes on my show, and I want to ask you as well. What does selling with love mean to you?
Exactly what I do with the chatbots, creating a personal connection and leading with value. I'm a strong believer that when you lead with some form, and I'm not saying this because of Alex Hormozi, I know that's what he always says, and his last book talks about this, but I've seen this firsthand. When you want to sell something, whatever it is, whether it's a physical product, a course, a mastermind, when you've led with some form of value and created a connection with that lead, user, follower, it doesn't matter what it is, the selling will truly be with love and will be at a higher rate than if you were just putting an ad in front of somebody and saying, buy my stuff. That's how I see it.
I love it. Liziana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with Liziana, I do want to add the fact that she's generated over $30 million in sales using Chatbot. There's probably a few sales you could do as well. So if you are in the business, go check that out. And honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have this conversation. And I can't wait to see more people be able to effectively use chatbots in a way that brings them results, does it ethically, and can look into their own journey as entrepreneurs, regardless of the industry that they're in. So thank you once again for coming on the show. And for everybody else, go out there, perhaps with a chatbot, and of course, sell with love.